Former WWE ring announcer and AEW Chief Brand Officer Brandi Rhodes reportedly wrestles a match at the WWE Performance Center. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE, and this is quite an interesting one, especially with Cody Rhodes' return to WWE earlier this year. A lot of people have spoken about what's going to happen with Brandi. Now, the interesting whole point with Cody Rhodes' his return to the company, the discussions regarding his return is that it wasn't going to be a package deal. It wasn't Cody and Brandi. It was just Cody Rhodes returning to the company. But it had been reported at the time that there was this sort of goodwill and possible openness to having Brandi Rhodes possibly sign with the company in the future, work as a talent, possibly work behind the scenes. They weren't really sure where it was going, but the idea of Brandi Rhodes also returning to WWE, because of course, remember, she used to be a ring announcer, Eden Styles, in WWE, so the idea of her possibly coming back to the company was also something that could happen in the future. Well, we might see the opening stages of that beginning to happen, because it's been reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful on their service, Fightful Select. Be sure to check that out and subscribe and sign up to that. Excellent work as always. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about Brandi Rhodes, what her future is, and for those who want an update regarding Brandi Rhodes, there is one, and it's quite significant. Things have been pretty quiet, to be honest, when it comes to Brandi Rhodes on her end of things since she and her husband, Cody Rhodes, left AEW earlier this year. And as I mentioned, it was reported by Sean Ross Sapp around the time that Cody re-signed with WWE that Brandi has maintained a good relationship with WWE recently. She's also pushed for Culture City and WWE to form a partnership. I believe that she formed a partnership with Culture City and AEW during her time in the role of Chief Brand Officer. However, for our reporting, there is a bit more to the relationship between WWE and Brandi Rhodes to just facilitating some relationships with possible other companies. Fightful has indeed confirmed and is reporting that Brandi Rhodes was at the WWE Performance Center recently. Now, they haven't heard that she signed any deal with the company one way or the other to be a wrestler, to be a brand representative, to be an ambassador, anything like that. But it wasn't simply a visit. They are told that Brandi competed in a match at a WWE Performance Center live event. Now, if you're not familiar with what they are, they're essentially live events that happen in front of no crowd inside the Performance Center. The crowd is usually other Performance Center recruits, coaches, possibly some full-time WWE main roster talent that's working out or just happens to be at the Performance Center. They do that obviously to improve the work of the talent involved in the ring, critique the work as well, get them used to having matches, get them used to having matches in front of a live crowd. They did this a lot during the pandemic, but they've always done it. And reportedly, Brandi Rhodes did compete in a match in one of these Performance Center live events. Now, they don't have a lot of details on who she faced, but it was said to have been a, quote, newer talent, though they're working to confirm that as well. The event itself took place on August 12th, so only 5 days ago, not that long ago at all, and she was seen at the Performance Center prior to that. Now, Rhodes last wrestled inside of a ring in January, taking on Kylan King in AEW. They are reporting as well, Fightful, that she's continued to wrestle at the Nightmare Factory. She's gone on the record several times saying, just because I'm not signed to WWE and just because I'm not signed to AEW doesn't mean that I'm never wrestling again, doesn't mean that I plan on stopping wrestling anytime soon. I'm still going to be training. I'm still going to be wrestling. I could go to, I guess, AEW, but I think that's really unlikely. I could show up in WWE. I could work a big indie show. I could work a StarCast or something. I could go to Impact Wrestling. She's not ruled out anything. When it came to Cody Rhodes returning to the company earlier this year, around that period of time, there was a lot of discussion of her pitching her Shot of Brandi TV show to lots of networks. I believe there might have been some kind of news about some kind of digital platform service picking it up. I forget if that's accurate. You can let me know in the comment section below. But that's what she was looking to do. Brandi Rhodes, I said at the time when the news came out that WWE maybe wasn't interested in bringing her in right now, it's pro wrestling. So, of course, at some point, just because of the limited nature of creative ideas, even with Triple H in charge, when it comes to creative and pro wrestling, it's episodic television. It's week to week to week to week to week. And even the most creative minds and the best minds to come up with stories and long-term programs and exciting television, exciting pay-per-views and big fights and big matches you run out of stuff to do. You run out of stuff to write, and you run out of stuff to book. And my feeling was at the time is there's plenty they can do with Cody Rhodes, and they could certainly tie him up for years with programs with single stars on the main roster. But WWE, and it'll be interesting to see what happens under Triple H, but WWE just can't help themselves when it comes to having a mixed tag team feud. They had it earlier this year with Edge and Beth Phoenix versus The Miz and Maurice. They've had it before with John Cena and Nikki Bella versus The Miz and Maurice. They've teased it on multiple occasions with multiple couples. They did it as well with, or they've teased it certainly with Bianca Belair and Montez Ford. And I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if we get a point at some point in the future where Cody Rhodes and Brandi Rhodes have a mixed tag team match against someone within WWE. I wouldn't rule it out whatsoever. I mean, I always felt that a possibility we could get to the future. It's now slightly different because Becky Lynch is a babyface and she's injured, but so is Cody Rhodes. That I felt that we could get a situation where it's Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch versus Cody and Brandi Rhodes, right? Husband and wife versus husband and wife. That makes a ton of sense. And in terms of a marketing match, it feels like a big match. Now, I don't know what the plans are for Cody Rhodes when he returns to WWE. Logic would state that he would pick up where he left off with Seth Rollins, even though that Hell in a Cell match was meant to be the end of their feud. I think given how Rhodes was written off of television with his torn pectoral tendon injury, logic would suggest he'll come back, possibly win the Royal Rumble, feud with Seth Rollins, and then turn his attention most likely to, I guess it would be Roman Reigns if he's still the Universal Champion at the time, or possibly a WWE Champion as well at the time. That could be a possibility as well. So there's lots of different avenues for that one to go down. But as I mentioned, I'm not shocked that she's still in contact with WWE. I'm not in shock that, I mean, I was slightly surprised to see her working a match at the Performance Center when she's not under contract, but why else would she be there? That's what I would say. Why else would Brandi Rhodes be at the Performance Center unless Cody was there? And that could be a situation. Again, Fightful hasn't reported that, but maybe Cody was at the Performance Center undergoing medical testing, undergoing some physio, or just having a meeting with Triple H. Who knows why he could have been there, but maybe that's why Brandi was there, and they were like, hey, we're doing a live event, a Performance Center live event, you fancy getting in the ring? And as any pro wrestler should, because you would say then, but why would she have her gear with her? Well, any pro wrestler worth their salt always travels with their gear. They always do. Even if they're retired, it's a pro wrestling tradition. Even if you're retired, they've always got their gear in the back of the car, because you never know. You're never there. That's meant to be the thing. So maybe it could just been happenstance. It does feel slightly premeditated, I would say, actually, to me. I don't know, but as I said before, the likelihood and the chance of Brandi Rhodes wrestling for WWE, I think, is really likely, and I don't see why it wouldn't be. I know people have their things about Brandi Rhodes and they don't like when she's got go away heat. Yeah, I'm sure she does. The stuff that she did in AEW I wasn't a fan of, but I wasn't a fan of a lot of Cody Rhodes stuff in AEW either. It wasn't just Brandi. I felt like she was forced on the television so much, and especially in the early days, the Nightmare Collective was awful, and it felt like sometimes the same with Cody Rhodes. They were trying to be like, we've got to find something for Brandi to do, and there wasn't a need for that. When it comes to WWE, it would make logical sense involving her in some of these things. It's not a case of we've got to find something for Brandi to do. It would be a case of, well, actually, there is something for Brandi to do. Let's have her do it. I think they're different situations. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on Brandi Rhodes possibly returning to WWE in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.